Well, I have a special guest today, Joel Kim, who covers South Korean football. Oh, he's here to talk about Son Heung-min, which we had a little bit of a lesson before the video just to make sure I'd been pronouncing his name right. Joel, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to join you on your show, on your podcast, and really exciting times right now with Sony coming to LAFC. And so I just love being able to connect with LAFC fans, and actually, you are the first channel that I'm doing that. It's an American channel. I've done many podcasts and I've jumped on many channels for many shows for British fan bases. But this is the first American one, and I'm an American, and so I just love that. I love how we can connect over our mutual country.
Yes, I'm excited, and I've been covering the league in total for almost 10 years,
Wow.
and I don't think I've quite seen buzz like this. Now, obviously, Messi came over in the summer of 2023, which was a huge deal, and
Yeah.
I definitely think it brought a lot of eyeballs to Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
But this is just different. Like I have never seen so much excitement and just such a short like so early, like it's just right out of the gate. As soon as it was announced, or even the possibility, bam, all the South Korean fans in droves were just coming here to support it and talk about how good Sonny was, how they were going to support LAFC now, and
Yeah.
they will follow him no matter what. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Our goal is to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. With your help, I know we will reach that goal. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of our videos. Now, back to the video.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sony is, in my opinion, he probably is the most beloved footballer on the planet. I mean, Messi is revered, and he's loved to some extent, but I think Sony is just another level in regards to just his beloved nature. Just the kind of character guy that he is, and how he always keeps his positive attitude on the pitch, and how he's always so selfless, um, and so he's so beloved, and so he's inspired a worldwide fan base, and he's the kind of guy that engenders that kind of loyalty. So whenever he moves clubs, like people just follow him, including us, and it's a big deal because he doesn't move around very often. Like he was with Spurs for 10 years, and so for him to move out of Spurs, a club that has become synonymous and associated with him in every little way, it's a huge move. But with this move, it presents a new door, a new opportunity, a new season. I think that's really exciting for Sony fans as well. That this is something new. After 10 years of being part of the Spurs, and there've been some great memories and some great history with that. And this is something really new, and this is something that's happening in a very exciting place. In Los Angeles, with football culture in America surging and growing popularity. And so I'm not surprised to see this explosion of interest, and I could definitely see Sony coming to the United States, really helping the culture out in a way that's not too unlike a Messi when he came earlier.
So, would you say obviously there's rivalries between many Asian countries where they don't like, they're competitive, right? Would you say Sonny is the most popular athlete, not just in South Korea, but in Asia in general?
It's a really good question. I think this is just my humble opinion. I think the only other athlete that will compare with his popularity is probably Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude is amazing, and I mean, he's at the top of his sport, top of his game, and but yeah, besides him, sheesh, when I think about Asian athletes, I think Sony's probably a number two, and probably a close number two on top of that.
Yeah, and when I first started covering this, I had fans from India, China, everything in between, saying, "Yeah, we're following Sonny. We're gonna watch him at LAFC. We will make the club." And I even had a couple funny jokes. A guy wrote me a description. He said, "Hey, listen, Sonny is like a god in South Korea." He said, "Just make videos covering how to buy tickets to the game, where to travel, game day experience, good Korean place to eat close to the stadium." He's like, "You'll go to 100,000 subs in no time." And I'm like, man, I just did not realize. I mean, because I'm watching from afar. I'm watching Sonny play with the Spurs. He's incredible. I really, this is what made me realize how much of the following he truly has internationally.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that before Sony, there really never was any Asian player who was a superstar when it comes to football, which is the world's most popular sport, by far. And so for a guy like Sonny, and especially a Korean, to come and do the things that he did in his 10-year career in the Prem, where he's I think he's like a top 25 all-time scorer in the Prem. He won a Golden Boot. He won a Puska. He's done some really crazy things, and he's done that consistently year after year after year. Like no one's even come close to that, and I don't think anyone's going to come close anytime soon. Obviously, what he's done, his feats, his accomplishments are completely extraordinary, and they engender that type of revering that he has. So yeah, in Korea, like he is like a god, and cultural commentators would say the same thing, and even just as a Korean myself, if I reflect on however long I lived, I really don't think there's been anyone in Korean history, culturally, that has been so, popular and has had such a sway, in just the culture, and someone that we're so proud of, this consistently. You have Korean people who make it big, and then they they'll rise in popularity, they'll have their moment, year of fame, and then they'll sink back down. Like Kim Yuna in the figure skating, she won gold in the Winter Olympics, which is a huge deal for our country. But like that's just seasonal. But Sonny is just, for 10 years, he's been the face of Korea, the face of Korean football, and the face of Asian football on top of all that. And so yeah, it's pretty crazy, the following that he has, and that's why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and you're seeing this surge of interest and all the stuff that's taking place around him coming to LAFC.
Yeah, so this leads me to my next question for you. I also think that Sonny is disrespected because I think Asian footballers are underrated. I think
Yeah.
there is a disrespect, and I believe that if he had the same accolades and he were Brazilian, he were Italian, he were English, that they would probably put him on a different, I don't want to say upper echelon, but like he would be looked at differently. And I think that that's, like I said, just the Asian disrespect or being underrated. Do you agree with that, or do you think he's properly rated internationally?
No, he's underrated, and that's just the way it goes because he's a trailblazer. He's a forerunner. It's not like there's been an established culture and acknowledgement of and history of Koreans or Asians being good at football. There hasn't, and so he's the first to come along, and whether whether it's intentional or not from football fans or not, that there is like that sort of stereotyping and this sort of I guess kind of low key racism, like, oh, they're Asian, they're not that good. They're not as good as South Americans or Europeans and all that. So he had to battle all that, which for me, that makes him even greater. And he was the first one to really take football to the next level. I mean, I want to give respect also to Koreans who came before Sonny. Like we had a guy named Cha Bum-gun who played in Germany back in late '80s, and he did extraordinary things in Germany, and so I don't want to say like Sonny was by himself the trailblazer, but what he did was on the backs of Cha Bum-gun, on the backs of Park Ji-sung with Manchester United, he's come along and he's just widened the door of influence and widened the platform of more Koreans to come and stand on it, such that when he retired from the Prem, now we have 3 guys in the Prem right now signed to Prem clubs, and we have more Korean players, but in particular, we have three kids under 20 that have been signed to Prem clubs, and that's a huge part, I believe, of Sonny's legacy, because every one of them have looked up to Sonny, and because of what Sonny's accomplished, they now can believe that they can do those same things as well. And so you're right, he's underrated. Perhaps if he was European or whatnot, the Puska, all those things. I remember when he was nominated for the Puska, people were like, nah, we shouldn't give it to him. Like what he did was whatever. But I also read comments like, well, if he was Argentinian, or if he was like, a German or whatnot, like you guys would be screaming his name, you'd be worshiping him. But because he's Korean, it's kind of like, he was lucky. So he definitely had to battle all that. And what's really gratifying and satisfying now is to see the recognition and the acknowledgement coming that he is a true legend. And it makes me so happy to see, especially Spurs fans, like they want a statue of him, outside the stadium, and by large consensus. And so just to see that that validation, coming from all over the world of what he's accomplished has been really, really nice and cool to see.
Yeah, and I would say that of the last 10 years, if you were doing like an all decade, well, not decade, but this last 10 years team in the Premier League, Sonny is definitely on that team. He has been the best winger, left winger in the Premier League by far, in my opinion.
Mm,
Him and Mo Salah have dominated both sides
yeah,
for the last decade in the
yeah,
Premier League.
yeah,
And I just think people forget that sometimes. There's a little bit of recency bias, or they think, oh,
yeah,
he's starting to slow down. He's not good anymore. He never was good. But I want to talk about him coming to Major League Soccer right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Um, so Sonny at his press conference said that LAFC was not his first choice, and I
Mm,
think, if I'm not mistaken, he talked to his dad, and his dad said something along the lines of "Go what makes you happy," I think, or something like that.
yeah,
And he ended up at LAFC.
yeah.
Were you surprised that he came to LAFC at 33?
Um, I was half surprised, half not surprised. I was half surprised because um, I thought and I had hoped that he would stay at Spurs for one more year, especially since they've reached the Champions League. And I had hoped that me and many other fans, we'd hope that he'd have like one last dance with the Spurs and maybe try to win the championship, Champions League. And so in that regard, I think there was some disappointment that he was deciding to withdraw, from that stage, from that ultimate platform. But I'm also not surprised because he is 33. He's getting on his years, and being at that club, especially being a captain the year before, it wasn't a guaranteed thing that he'd be a captain again. And I I didn't myself and many others, we didn't want him to kind of, be that kind of bench player coming on like that, just older figure that has been stripped of the camp seat for someone else. Um, like many commentators have said, I think he's left at the right time. He's left on the high, and he hasn't overstayed his time at Spurs. But he's leaving, riding into the sunset, winning that trophy. And at the age of 33, I think it makes sense in many ways that he would choose MLS. I actually thought he would go to Korea, maybe, and play in the Korean League, because that's something he mentioned in interviews past that he would consider doing that. And that's not out of the window. Maybe after he's done with the MLS later in his 30s, if he wants to continue playing, he may go back to Korea as well. But I'm not surprised at the age of 33 that he would want to tackle the MLS for many reasons. Number one, because LA, Los Angeles is an attractive destination city. I mean, that's a beautiful city, a beautiful culture community. It's epicenter of American culture. Hollywood, K-Town. I mean, so many convergence of so many things, and so it's a dream come true. I mean, for his brand especially, like it's huge. He's becoming mainstream in America now, which is something that I think he wanted and we wanted for him. It's one thing to be mainstream in Europe and whatnot, but it's another to be mainstream in American culture. He's now conquering the West, and that's something that's huge, and so it's very attractive. But on a more like when it comes to like national team football, I also think this really factored in, and he mentioned this in his interviews. He wanted to also come to America to also prepare for the World Cup. He was saying, "This is probably my last World Cup, and so I want to go to a place where I can give it my all." And I think he came to America just to be more familiar with the country, with the stadiums, with just the atmosphere, so that when the World Cup hits, he's not like he doesn't feel like a stranger in the country. He's been here for a year. He's been traveling around. He's been traveling between stadiums, between states, and so he'll be that much more prepared and that much more focused on giving it all for the World Cup. So I think that's really cool. And I also think that he wanted to come because I think football culture, soccer culture in America is at an all-time high with Messi coming on board, and I think he sees something special taking place in America in regards to football culture and where it's going as opposed to where it's been in the past, and he wanted to be a part of that. And so I think it's a really good move. I think it's convergence of all those things, and I think in the end he did. It may not have been his first choice initially because he still maybe has a year or two left of extremely competitive football and the opportunities presented before him. But I think when he thinks about it and because of the World Cup and all these other factors that I mentioned, I think it was a no-brainer for him that, hey, you know what, this could really work, and I could see myself being happy here. Being the face of this LAFC team, at the right time in the right place, in America and the culture, and with the World Cup coming up ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's a blessing for LAFC. The stars aligned perfectly to even have this opportunity.
Yeah.
And yeah, 33 years old. I still think he has a couple good years left in him. And
Yeah.
just because you might not be the top 10, top 15 player in the Premier League anymore doesn't mean you're not a good football anymore. You still
Yeah.
have a lot, and you could still dominate MLS, and I expect him to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for MLS because of this, because his brand, his name recognition globally, he's such a good person. People love him. And there could not be a better ambassador for your team than Sonny. Like you
Yes.
couldn't. And then LAFC, like you said, LA, we were mentioned before we went live or started recording that there's the debate between New York City and LA who has the bigger Korean population, which is really considered the Korea outside of out of Korea, right?
Yeah.
LA, I think, has like 300,000 Korean population, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But how many people, even if New York City, let's just say hypothetically had more, it's just going to be so much more. It's going to be way easier for people to travel to come see him play on the
Yes.
West Coast.
Yes.
So that's nice. And this has to be the closest he's lived to home since he left, right? I mean, I would say is LA closer than I would say it is than Germany, right?
That's a very good point to make. I think that's possible. I wouldn't know factually, but I think that's a good point. It's possibly true. Yep.
Yeah. So and then the World Cup, him being a main figure for Major League Soccer, him and Messi, both of them are going to play in the World Cup in 26. They both play
Yeah.
in Major League Soccer. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Out of all the signings that Major League Soccer could have made, you take Messi off the table. Sonny has to be top three, top four dream signings for Major League Soccer. And I think the reason why it's really starting to sink with people, Joel, is that it kind of just happened so quick.
Yeah.
It just came together so quickly. And they just paid a record fee for him in MLS, $27 million.
Yeah.
$27 million.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
I can't wait to watch his first game. I think he's going to dominate
Yeah.
in MLS. So let's talk about that.
Sure.
The Spurs,
Hmm.
terrible last year outside of winning Europa. Terrible team. They were not very good last year, and it was not his fault. There's just a lot of um, unfortunate things that happened. I think they finished 16th or 17th in the Premier League in 2025, which is really close, obviously, to the relegation zone. A lot
Mm.
closer than the Spurs had ever been at any point that Sonny had been there.
Yeah.
I don't think that the 7 goals really reflect him taking a step down in quality. I think it was just the team was bad around him, and I think that they probably focused more on him, which gave him less opportunities. I still think he really does have a couple years of high quality seasons left.
Yeah. 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 I completely agree. If we just talk about the goals itself, number one, there's a big debate, you know, in the football world that he wasn't really employed properly or the best he could be employed, in Ange Postecoglou or even, the coaches before. And so, he was oftentimes employed as a touchline winger and who, needs to beat his man off the side and get into the box and either score or create an opportunity to score. A lot of the goals that we've come to know him for, the curlers and all that, comes when he inverts to the center, and he didn't really have much opportunities to do that, through Ange Postecoglou compared to other coaches that he's worked for in the past. So, a lot of Sony fans, they didn't like Ange Postecoglou for that reason. Although I personally like the guy, and the bond that he had with Sony is undeniable. The love they have for each other, and he's the coach that got Sony his first trophy. So for me, Ange Postecoglou will always be a coach that I love.
By the way,
Yes.
there's been reports that maybe he might be in the running to because I don't know if you know this, but LAFC's manager has announced he's leaving at the end of the season. So he's actually been rumored to take over at the end of the season. So I wanted to mention that real quick.
Well, if that's the case, get ready for more Spurs fans to join the bandwagon because Ange Postecoglou, he's become a cult figure because of what he's accomplished with the club, and he's also inspired a very fierce loyalty, and so that'd be exciting to see him come. But yeah, I think, and so there's that. He hasn't been really employed properly and maximized efficiently as he can be for the goals. Number two, there's the injuries that the club has faced, and so Ange Postecoglou, his system, in my opinion, works the best when he has center backs that build properly well from the back and also have the mobility to defend against a counterattack. And honestly, for like 75% of the season, like our two top center backs were out. Van der Ven was out and Romero was out, and so we were having guys like Archie Gray play center back. This like 19-year-old kid, you know, and so like we were just so injury riddled, and so I don't hold Ange Postecoglou that accountable for that, because he was just unlucky. He had all these injuries, and people were like, "Oh well, he should know better to protect his players in training and whatnot." But like if you look at Ange Postecoglou's career through Celtic or whatnot, he didn't have this issue before. You know, he still was able to succeed, and so it only happened in his 2 seasons with the club, and that 2 seasons is far limited a sample range to say that he's a bad coach rather than he just was unlucky, in my opinion. And so I think the personnel factors, it was just a bad storm of all these factors contributing that, you know, caused the Spurs to lose league games. But during the Europa League, they were doing well. And so they just made a strategic decision, which I think was a wise decision, to honestly just kind of pull out, you know, don't focus so much on the league games, but focus on the Europa League. Because at the end of the day, win the Europa Trophy, you're getting into Champions League. And I think he made the right call, you know, to conserve his players for these Europa League matches, and it paid off. They won the Europa Trophy. They got a trophy for the Spurs for the first time this century, and they're playing in Champions League. And I'm still upset that he was fired for that. You know, he was fired for a strategic decision, and a lot of Spurs fans are still upset. But there's that as well. So, you know, Sonny was like the one that had to shoulder all that and lead the team through all that. And so that was tough on him. But the last thing I want to say is this. We look at his goals and we're like, oh, he only scored 7 goals. I don't say Sonny as just someone who's gifted at scoring goals. People used to say, oh, he's underrated as a goal scorer. And you know, back when he was really rising in prominence as a deadly winger. But now I think he's acknowledged as a good goal scorer. I think he's very underrated as a creator, as a shot creator, and as someone who can, as a creative playmaker. Like he leads the Spurs. He is an all-time Spurs assist leader, which is wild, you know, because he is one of the most deadliest wingers. He's top 25 in the Prem in scoring goals, but he leads all-time Spurs as an assist. So to me, when I look at Sonny, he is a baller. He's not just a scorer. He can play the game. He knows how to move without the ball. He knows how to pass the ball well. He does Trivelas like nothing. Like, I don't know any other winger who, you know, besides maybe Lamine Yamal, who can Trivela the way that Sonny can. And hopefully you'll see some of those, you know, as he plays these games. But he is just a consummate baller altogether. And I think that is the biggest thing he brings to LAFC. Like, he has slowed down, obviously, with his age. I don't know if he's going to be scoring goals left and right, like pulling off hat tricks like he did in Spurs. I hope so. I don't know. But one thing I do know for sure is that he is a baller. He's going to draw attention. He's going to create opportunities for the other players, and he's going to run the offense, and he's going to bring so much onto the pitch besides his ability to score goals. And I think that's underrated, because, you know, in the Premier League last season, I think he had over 10. He had more assists than goals. I'll put it that way. And that's something that does not get talked about enough. And that's something that I really deeply respect about Sonny, because he's not just a one-dimensional goal scorer. He can do a lot with the ball, and that's why the Spurs, you know, they're struggling right now already in the get-go. Like, they don't have Sonny, and they have these other great wingers, but he just brings so many intangibles onto the pitch. Besides his goal scoring, I didn't even talk about his leadership and just the model that he has. You know, just as a good captain on the pitch, and so he brings a lot. And so I really hope that as LAFC fans, that we don't just expect scoring from him, you know, because if you think he's going to come in and score hat tricks every game, you might be disappointed. Respect his game, just his overall game, his acumen, his intelligence, his craftiness, his creativity, and I think that's where he's really underrated. But I think that's what he really brings to the club that will help it down the line.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you too, real quick, how much. I don't think you watched a lot of MLS, right? You've kind of not really.
Really. We have a few Korean players, but I don't like really check out their games fully. I mean, I got my hands full already with our European players, but yeah.
Well, you'll be checked in now, at least, right?
Yes.
So the thing I'm going to be interested to see, which we'll see tonight, is LAFC currently have someone on the left wing, Denny Bwanga. He's their best player.
Okay.
But if they play, they kind of like interchange their wingers, like they'll kind of swap spots during the game, and like, you know, they're not normal. Like, he'll probably play like 80% left wing, but they'll interchange him and stuff just to throw the defense off, the back line off. So I'm thinking that Sonny is probably going to play striker,
Okay.
up top because they don't have a striker. They
Yeah.
just they let go of Olivier Giroud.
Yeah.
And I think Sonny's he's good enough to play any of the front three attacking positions, and he's good with both feet, so he can play left wing, striker, right wing if he has to.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that's going to mess with him if he has to play striker instead of the left wing? Like, is
No.
he? Do you think? Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be
Yeah.
good. But it's like you want
Yeah.
to. My whole thing is the reason I asked that, which sounds kind of funny, is because we've seen him at his best in the left wing, and I feel like when you have a guy like him, you want to see him play his best position. You don't want to play him not necessarily where he's like not comfortable because, like I said, he can play any of the top three positions, but
Yeah.
you want to put him where he's been best at.
Yeah. 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 I think ideally, you want to see him on the wing, ideally. But I think there's also a growing acknowledgement that as he gets older and, as he's past his prime and physically, that he's going to have to make the move to the 9 position. But luckily, we've seen really good things out of that already. Even in Spurs, when Kane was out, like Stoney stepped in, and without a hitch, he pretty much brought the club to the Champions League final. Back when Pochettino was there. I don't know what year that was, but he really demonstrated his ability to be able to be the tip of the spear, in the attack. And even with the Korean national team, there's a lot of discussion these days that we feel like if Sonny, he's going to have to make that transition ultimately to also go to the striker position as he gets older within our own national team as well. And so yeah, I think that's something that he will be very open to. I think that's something he'd be very eager to do, especially if you guys already have like really young, pacey wingers, and type of goals that he scored. He's like the ultimate. He's the ultimate like poaching goal scorer. Like it really fits him, in that 9 position. He's really good at the rebounds. He's really good at the breakouts, the through balls and just blowing past the opponent and getting that ball. That's like the 1v1s, like that's his thing. In that 9 position. So I could totally see that happening. I could totally see him being employed there if he's not playing, the wings. And so he's been used to great effect like that for Spurs many times. And so I think he can play. He doesn't really play right wing, but he can play the left wing and the central striker position for sure. The one thing that he can't do that he's not like as good at when you think about the prototypical 9 is he's not known for like heading goals,
Yeah.
So whenever he heads goals, he's even surprised, like, oh, but beyond that, like just being clinical in the box, when he has the ball as a 9, like he's just a threat every single time. And I think he'll always remain a threat. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this: if he doesn't have to worry about that, because LAFC are terrible at crossing the ball. That's why Giroud was such a failure here, because no one was there to give him any crosses.
Oh,
So that's why he failed pretty badly. 2 final questions for you.
yeah.
One, what does this do for LAFC popularity globally? Are they going to be now the biggest soccer team in South Korea? Are they, or at least the most popular? Maybe. I mean, obviously they have their home teams, but like I know that they rallied around the Spurs. And number 2, have you already ordered your Son LAFC kit?
Well, number 1, yeah, I still think they'll probably be the most popular team in South Korea just because of Son Heung-min. We have many exciting prospects that have recently been signed to the Prem. Like we got a guy by the name of Park Sung-soo. I don't know if you've seen my post. He's just made history as the youngest Korean to ever debut on the first team of a Prem side, even though it was a friendly game. And he looked good. He looked pretty decent. And so as these players kind of grow in their image and popularity, and as their clubs also grow along with them, there will come a time maybe in the future where Sonny will be overtaken, but that's not today, and that's not anytime soon. I think Sonny is still 33. He can still do a lot, and him coming to LA and him going mainstream in America, that's always going to be something that makes Koreans proud, and it's going to be something that makes us love Sonny more, because that's what we want to see for Sonny. We want to see him grow. We want to see the guy being recognized globally, and not just in the European football, but especially in America. And so it will, in my opinion, I feel like LAFC will always, Koreans are going to cover the MLS and LFC and cover the MLS and LAFC like we've never covered the MLS before, which is funny, So even for me, I'm just telling all my new MLS friends, I'm like, yeah, I'm an American and I want the culture here to grow, but my heart's already given to so many other teams in Europe. But now with Sony and LAFC, I'm just like, let's go. Like I'm on board. Although I should be supporting my New York Red Bulls locally, and I do, but man, Sonny, I mean, how can I not? He's the man. He's a GOAT. In regards to my kit, holy cow! I just checked the website. Those things go for like $200. Yeah, I got to get it at some point for sure. There's such a wait now because everyone's ordering it, and so I don't know when I'm gonna get it. But hopefully I'll get it very soon in time to see him, at a game, and hopefully maybe get an autograph or something.
Yeah. I think he's the fastest selling kit, maybe second all time, and
Second
he's
all time behind Messi.
Messi.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I knew that could happen. I mean, I knew. I just
Yeah.
he's gonna be first, and he's first right now. It maybe Messi takes back over eventually, but Son's gonna be number one for a bit. Joel, listen, I appreciate it, my friend. Before I let you go, where can everybody follow you out on social media and find all your work at?
Yeah, you can just follow me on Twitter, on X, at KNT Football. I'm going to be devoted to covering Sonny wherever he goes, and especially now at LAFC. But I also cover other footballers as well. And if you have any interest in Korean football or any of our prospects, upcoming players, you can check out my account there. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor. And like I said, this is my first American show that I'm doing. I've done shows with different British Prem fan bases and championship fan bases, but this is the first time I'm interacting with a fellow American. So I love this, and I look forward to running with you guys.
Yeah, it's been an honor to have you on. I'm glad that I'm the first American show you've been on, and hopefully it's not the last. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hey, Sonny's here. We'll see what he does. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.